morning, folks. Good day, good day, good day. And welcome to another batch of All for Success. Welcome to the All for Success space. Oops, I'm dropping things. Folks, help me out. Um, Welcome to the All for Success space where I like to talk about things in a very positive, somewhat leaning fashion. This is definitely a Sussex friendly environment. Um, I am a very positive person when I see how the work of Harry and Meghan, known as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, maneuver through this world amid all of the challenges and the environment that they are definitely dealing with. So, for all of you who are interested in having a little chat about things like that or entertained by it, please get yourself a cup of coffee if you're going to do that this morning, or throw on your headphones and get out there and take a walk if you're going to do that this morning. And as I always start off, I like to let everyone know that I'm trying to keep myself fit and exercised as much as possible because in this chat space, I'm coming at it from the viewpoint of a parent, also of adult children, and trying to support your adult children as they move through life and pursue their own endeavors. So that's who I am, which means that my age is up there a little bit with that age group. And thus we need to try to stay healthy, stay fit, eat right, and exercise. So let us know what you have done, let's say over the past week, what kind of exercises you've done. That way you can support me, and encourage others. I always let you all know what I did. And so I'm going to type in the chat here that I walked, approximately a mile a day. Now, here is something else I added in, and I took a bike ride. Yes, that's one of my favorite things, out in the little pathway that we have, which is gorgeous when the weather is not too hot. We have wonderful big overhanging trees on one of our pathways, and it is excellent. And I think we rode for about, I'm going to say maybe 15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, 15 minutes or so. And it was an excellent bike ride. I just rode along leisure, in a very leisure fashion. But some of the folks that were riding with me, well, they put in a little bit more energy. But I've got to tell you, as I rediscover bike riding as an adult, it's really lovely. And I think to myself, why haven't I been doing this all the time? So I encourage each of you to try it. It's a little bit, actually, they say it's a little bit less of an impact than, say, being out for a jog or a run. So it's really nice. So you all, please let me know what you're doing to stay fit and healthy, because I actually look at so many ideas and try to incorporate things. Right? Now, let's moving on to what we're actually here for. And I am not going to keep everyone all day because you know what? It's Saturday morning. We got things to do. So, as I have spoken about all of your exercise and fitness jaunts, I want everyone to get in there and do the same. All right, so get up and get out. All right, folks. Well, what we did hear about over the past week, as we have all been anticipating and waiting for, we were waiting for our wonderful family, Sussex, to get on the road and head out for another little short trip that they were going to do to another country. Now, the country of choice this time, as has been in the news and all the buzz, is Colombia, which is in South America. Well, Colombia, of course, has a lot of history, right? It has some ancient history, so to speak, plus it has modern day history. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the modern day history surrounds the drug cartels, the drug movement, the production of cocaine, and all sorts of illegal substances. I think even to include nowadays fentanyl as well, which is a very dangerous drug that is on the market. So, since that is also in the new history of Colombia, and there are movies made about it, many of the many of you who enjoy movies like things about the drug cartel. I think I watched not long ago the movies about Cartagena, the Colombian drug lords, Pablo Escobar. And I mean, the movies for me were fantastic and entertaining. Now, the interesting thing is, during those movies, it didn't really occur to me how the rest of the country might be operating. It's interesting. You might watch a movie about something happening in a country, and you're so focused on what it is that's in that film that you don't really relate it to what would the day-to-day lives be for the rest of the population in that country, or is this particular subject matter only specific to a certain area? Well, the interesting thing about Colombia is, as with all countries that have these type of, I don't want it is a very touchy thing to say, criminal people in charge, because that's somewhat fair slash not a full picture, right? It's almost as if you have a country where the people who are in the power structure, or they have the money, that means they have a lot of influence over what might be happening in the country overall, right? And so, what that can do is it can give a very strange picture of the entire continent, when perhaps only a certain element in that country are involved in these particular activities. So, it is not untrue. It is definitely not untrue that since you have people who have a lot of money, due to the fact that they are involved in much of this drug trade and whatever ancillary crimes are associated, that means it's going to give them power and influence in other areas. And so that is what has listed um, that country in as it is seen by other countries as perhaps a place that is not quite stable and perhaps not so safe and things of that nature. Now, with that being said, even though that is the background, this invitation for Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, to go and travel there mainly involved the vice president and what would appear to be her interest in talking about cyberbullying and social media and its effects on young people, because that is a focus of what Harry and Meghan talk about often. It is one of their key components, something that is supported by Archwell. And I think it is wonderful that she extended that hand, that invitation for them to come down, run around a little bit, meet some students, and then talk about some of the effects, some of the things that are going on with social media and cyberbullying. Now, for all of us who are operating in the online spaces, and I am what I would call a novice at this YouTube thing, but I do enjoy chatting online. I right now I do enjoy attempting to record my voice to do different types of work. With that being said, when you are maneuvering around in this YouTube space and other social media applications, you begin to see a particular trend. And one thing that we see bigger than anything else is that almost the most regarded, watched, interacted with video and social media post, for example, on Twitter, X, It's when people say something controversial, extremely rude, something that is directed or angry towards a people or a group of people or an individual. And in this space, for whatever reason, in this medium, it takes on a life of its own. And then every available keystroking personality in the background, whether they be paid to do this or whether it's just the lady at home that has nothing to do, people seem to feel the need to interject into this space or into these feeds the most abhorrent of commentary, the most negative of commentary, the most inflammatory commentary. For whatever reason, this environment seems to feed on that. It is as if it needs and it wants more of that type of engagement. If I didn't know any better, and remember, guys, I'm somewhat conspiracy theory adjacent. So I say things that you might think, oh, she's absolutely losing her mind. But with that being in the play, if I didn't know any better, I would think that there was someone hooked up to hooked up to the electrons coming from these devices and actually sucking in and feeding off of whatever negative feedback could be gleaned out of this system, almost as if it was a feeding tube to some big energy sucking entity. Okay, I know I've stepped into the Twilight Zone Star Trek world, but just kind of follow along with me, hang in there with me, because it doesn't make any sense if you really think about it. It just doesn't make sense to have a tool that is a fun, that could be, right? It could be a source of a lot of entertainment, a lot of fun, and to take that tool and make it basically focus on whatever is the most negative, abject negative insight and psychology of each person, right? But that is exactly how the environment of our social media structured world operates. So, with that in the background, you've got our couple who they definitely were made UK enemy number one for having dared to either question or actually disengage from the structure of the institutional monarchy, which has a sole purpose of providing you a fairy tale picture, a fairy tale view of the monarchy. So for them to dare and put a light on, this is not a fairy tale for us and we want out, for them to be able to try to put forward that possibility, it was a definite challenge to this fairy tale that was presented. That is the monarchy. It is that thing that you all are supposed to always look at and worship. Now, you can't be it, right? So, of course, that makes them almost godlike, right? And they need to maintain that. They cannot allow anyone from inside to say, oh, by the way, we're the monarchy, but we're really not that important. And Harry and Meghan and their exposing what is the reality of the monarchy is absolutely it's untenable to those in the UK. And therefore, the population that supports this, they're basically having a like a computer glitch. They're glitching out and they're shutting down. Their circuits are burning out because this is something that they are putting forward, which is the reality of what is the monarchy. And so they can't handle it. And thus, all of the negative commentary about any and everything that Harry and Meghan may do. So that brings us again back to Colombia and this trip there. So this trip there, they're going to do a couple of visits. Of course, they're going to do school visits and they're going to do panels and they're going to talk about cyberbullying a little bit more in depth. And they're going to, which is really cool, is they're going to actually listen to some of the stories that many of the students have to tell. I thought it was intriguing that some of the students were giving their perspectives about how they feel social media works, or whether they think it is an advantage or a disadvantage. And it is intriguing I only read a couple of articles, and I encourage all of us, everyone, myself included, to try to find an article here or there where the actual students are talking about this specific issue. Because what I don't want to do 100% of the time, as would the UK tabloid media, is to completely make irrelevant the whole purpose of their travel. So the whole purpose of their travel were two things, right? Talking about cyberbullying, and of course, Prince Harry continuing to make contact with those who had participated in Invictus. There are several people in Colombia that had the opportunity to participate in the Invictus Games, and he'll be able to touch base with them. Now, that really is the core of the trip, which is great. But the UK tabloid media they won't even speak about that. They won't even mention those two things, the topics, right? And it was intriguing to hear some of the young people, or what was written, their perspective on whether or not social media overall is a positive thing or a negative thing. And I think what's wonderful about many of these young folks is that they are definitely becoming more and more aware that it is somewhat of a minefield, but I think they also have a way of operating in this environment, which is actually better than many of us who are older. They tend to have an ability that's kind of built in of what to ignore. And what's really interesting about the young folks who are participating and using social media is they are adept at being in a space, operating the way they want to operate in that space as young people. And then when that space is flooded by too many older people or flooded by agents that are trying to control that space, it's interesting how quickly young people move away from that space, right? At least they move away from the space being used the way that they did. And Facebook is an extreme example of that. Because in talking to these young folks, as soon as Facebook became super popular for adults and parents, they quickly moved on to Snapchat, right? Because Facebook began to not make sense to them. And I tell you, I'll bet that that will probably happen to some degree with TikTok as well. TikTok has a great reach, and young people were really into it for the fun, the games, and the music and the dances. But I think because it's now becoming infiltrated by people making negative comments, negative commentary, clips of people pointing, my favorite thing to hate, clips of people videotaping themselves pointing at something, pointing at another video with negative commentary underneath it. I'm like, why does this person get views and I don't? Right? It's amazing. But that's what is now happening even in the TikTok space. So I would not be shocked that the young folks will start to slide away from that space. So anyway, Duke and Duchess, they headed on to Colombia for summer of love and new travel. And because this area is somewhat, you have to be very calculating and very careful because there are nefarious actors operating in that country, just like in any other. But we're going to say that perhaps the actual president slash vice president and their entourage were going to provide the level of protection they felt was required for the Duke and Duchess to visit, especially given the threat level that they have already endured. It would be different if no one had ever threatened Harry and Meghan. That would be a different trip. They could drive down there on their own. But because they are so targeted, especially by the UK tabloid media and whoever the UK tabloid media will unleash. Okay, because let's understand, just like the riots that they had in the streets in the UK, it is the UK tabloid media perspective that immigrants are causing all the problems in their world, right? If it weren't for the immigrants, they would be greater people. And all of this, if everybody you saw was white, you would just be doing great, right? And as long as they put that out there in the netherworld, it was put out there for people to pick it up and run with it, right? And so if they hadn't done these type of things, if they hadn't increased the amount of hatred that would be directed towards this couple, then perhaps they would be able to travel on their own. But the other thing is, as they travel about and as they get invitations, we have to recall that the monarchy and the institution simply wanted them to be put caged in a box and the lights turned off and have them wrapped up and closed and never speak again, right? Because that is the only thing they can think to do when there is tension and dissension from their institution. And it has happened with how many people in their past, right? You know, how many royals in the past tried to move off and do something different, but they were restrained, blocked, and shut down. And it definitely, in many cases, it is definitely still in play, and they are continuing to work on the destruction of the light that Harry and Meghan have, right? With every change in their staff, with every movement that they make, with every endeavor that they strive for, the institution has one mission, and that is to make phone calls and give interviews and go out and find people to discourage them from doing anything positive with Harry and Meghan. And it is amazing that for money, of course, now if you offer people the right amount of money, it is amazing what they will do. And they most certainly will disregard Harry and Meghan for the amount of money being offered. So, okay, summer of travel, they headed out to Colombia. So they did attend one of these big festival dances, which shows some of the history of Colombia. And so there was this big festival dance, and it's a very elaborate affair. The costuming is quite elaborate, and there's quite a bit of history behind some of the origins of their dance. Also, the vice president that invited them, her name is Francia Marquez, and she's one of the first Afro Latinas, is how she was described, that has risen to that high office. And so a lot of the things that they were doing culturally and a lot of the things that they were visiting in sites were also of Afro Latina extraction and interest. And I thought that was a very intriguing and beautiful thing to do as well. Now, I knew that Meghan had been a person who worked in the UN and had been on many committees, but I had no idea that she had spent so much time in South America. She is very functional in the Spanish speaking language. So she was very comfortable trying to communicate her thoughts and speak with the students, even in Spanish, and people were very enamored by that. But I can tell you, as we see some of the clips and the photos of the vice president in and around Harry and Meghan, I tell you what, she appeared to be very pleased that she made that invitation. And she also um, appears to be very fearless about the fact that she made that invitation. And if I couldn't be sure, I would say that around her is an air of defiance, which is, you know, I do what I want to do, and I'll talk to whom I like to talk to, no matter what the naysayers think or say. And I got that feeling from her interaction and from her basic attitude. So I am hoping that this relationship will definitely continue to blossom and that we can watch more of these types of interactions in the future. I just thought it was beautiful. So here they are at these festivals, and the culture and some of the storytelling along with them is fascinating, truly fascinating. So in this photo here, the one that's at the top, I thought it was intriguing that this is Francia Marquez's husband. I can't remember his name, and I'm always mad at people who show videos and slides and then they don't know the names of people. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing to do. It's really awful. But he's there and he's a very handsome man. And I thought it was really nice that he came out and spent time with them as well. And it is interesting that he seemed to be very, what do you call it? Very casual and very affirming. And he seemed to be extremely supportive and glad to see them. And I think that speaks volumes as well. That was a very nice thing for him to do. Now, in some of the photos, also there was a couple of military members, and I'm not sure if they played any role. I will in future be looking to see if there was any military interaction, especially when it comes to Invictus. But at this point, their trip is still ongoing, so there'll be much more information to come as far as what they might be doing as time goes on. So I look forward to seeing what the military personnel might have to say about their visit with Prince Harry. So we're looking into that. And then on this other photo, of course, there's Harry and Meghan in the middle. And at some points in these photos, Meghan also looks like she's one of the students. Sometimes she kind of fits into the background there. But there they are taking a selfie, of course, with the students on the other side because it was very casual and they had the opportunity to sit there and meet with the students, do handshakes, talk with the actual students on site. And it was really a great casual visit. Now, where the UK finds this something to be angry about, right? So, because what? Even though this is what they were there to do, and I want you to just take a quick look at this, and it won't take me long to just kind of show you what I'm saying. When you look at the UK media focus, I couldn't find any articles about the campaign against cyberbullying. I think there was a mention in in an article, perhaps from 2023. There might have been a mention. The Mirror did a review because of their TV appearance, which was recent in August. But if you thought that the UK media was going to actually have a focus to talk about the actual subject, which is cyberbullying, and many of the deaths that have been caused due to cyberbullying, perhaps things that have led to children harming themselves. If you thought the UK tabloids were going to discuss any of that, you would be incorrect. There was none of that in their media. The only thing that was in their media, the only thing they had a focus on was what? I mean, I bet you can guess. The only thing they could focus on was the crime in Colombia, the drug lords in Colombia, the fact that the president's brother or her relatives, they might be doing things that are nefarious. Oh, they're awful people. Why would they go there? It's not good for them to show up in Colombia. What an awful thing to do. This was the approach of the UK media. Not one mention whatsoever about the lives affected by cyberbullying. You know, not at all. And what is amazing to me, as we are all looking at this, is it just shows you that the UK media is they're sick. They're sick, but they're only collecting the money that is given to them because people feed into this. Now, I wish we had some type of medication or some type of magic pill which would allow people to, what do you call it? People to get out of that phase. It would be nice, but it would seem that there is nothing that can be done to break the spell of loving hatred. It really is. It's just sad. So what I'm going to do is take a short moment here, and I want to say hello to all of you guys who are here. I don't want you to think that I don't see you out here and about. Let me see if I can read through my chats and welcome folks. Okay, I want to say good morning to folks who I can see, but I want you to think about that. How hard is it for us to let go of feeding into the negative things we see? That's what we need to figure out. Hello, King for Concepts. Thank you for being here. Thank you. You talk about getting yourself together. Oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe the morning that I've had. You can imagine I'm over here struggling. Thank you for being here. Good morning, Joyce Anderson. Good Saturday morning to you. And she says good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here as well. Let's see what else we got you saying here. You're telling us that the costumes, the music, and the atmosphere, I bet it is. You know what? And now that they've been there, just like going to Nigeria, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wonder if I could make a trip there myself, if I'm too old to make that trip, or would I be comfortable enough to make a trip like that? And you're saying you live outside of Detroit and certain areas in your beloved country. Yeah, okay. Exact. That is the thing. Colombia is no different than any other country. You can talk about how super, super, super dangerous it is. It's just like the worldview of America. The worldview of America, everyone over here is strapped with a machine gun walking down the street just to go to the grocery store. Why? Because America's television presents every American as walking around waving guns in the air and shooting for no apparent reason. Exactly. They're constantly dipping into the world of what I would call propaganda. There's like worldwide propaganda about who we are as Americans. Thus, every other country is the same. And I always have a theory. Oh, Church Nelly. Oh my gosh. Hi, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here as well. All of you super squatties are definitely welcome to come on down. Yay. But in America, I know, you see how I do that? I change subjects all in mid-sentence. But that is the thing. I always tell folks, listen, here's something again. I told you I'm adjacent to conspiracies. I sit next door to conspiracy world. You cannot make me believe or unbelieve that the powers that be, and I don't know who those money-making powers are, but they sit at the top of the pyramid. They are always putting out information to try to keep and I say our as in the regular man and woman, just like they're trying to control the movement of Harry and Meghan, and they don't want them to go here or there or to do this or that. That is the same feature that is heaped upon the average American or world citizen. Welcome, Connie Balmer. Thank you for being here to all for success as well. Thank you again, love, again to see all of you wonderful super squatties in the house. But but you guys, you can't make me believe that the goal of these world powers is to keep you average people constantly fearful, constantly afraid. They're constantly telling you where you can't go, what you can't do, why you shouldn't go somewhere. You know, it makes me think often of some of the people that I work with. Thank you, Lorna Williams, for being here. She says, hello, squatties, and we're saying hello to you. Thank you for being here with me as I'm trying to struggle along in this wonderful feed. It's amazing. And she says, you have a better chance of finding a snowball at the equator than the UK media talking about cyberbullying. Of course, because they'd be talking about themselves, wouldn't they? Yeah, that is true. But that is the thing. There are people even that I worked with on a daily basis. And it's interesting to watch how this worm has gotten into everybody's mind. Let's say I walked in and I said, and I told you all about my trip recently. I went to Vietnam. I made, I'm telling my coworkers, okay, yeah, I'm going to take this trip. I'm going to Vietnam. I would say 3 out of 10 people had this type of response. Oh my God, why would you want to go there? Oh my goodness. Isn't that a communist country? Oh my goodness. Is it safe? Now, truth be told, no matter where you go, no matter where you travel, aren't there things that you need to be cautious and careful about? Right? In my town, if I go downtown, I need to be cautious and careful. And oh my gosh, aren't there bad things happening here in this town? Yes. But it is an interesting, I would say, an interesting effect worldwide how people are, I would say, herded into believing that they can't do or travel or go or actually achieve any endeavor without being totally afraid of something. Fear is something that is piped into us constantly, continuously. It is an amazing thing. It is constant fear piped in. And Lorna Williams says, let's see, she's talking about a bargain block on HGTV. Oh, I'm talking about them renovating houses in Detroit for the middle class. Yeah, I know of that show. I see you guys are chit-chatting back and forth about different things. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Yes, that's true. Detroit, like she mentioned, there are areas in Detroit that she may not go. Well, see, that's what I mean. There are areas everywhere, right? There are areas even in each neighborhood. I mean, there are houses in a neighborhood that you might not want to go, right? The thing is, should you be completely and totally unable to maneuver in this world because you are fearful of that possibility of that next thing? And if you notice, UK tabloid media and even some of the many general tabloid medias, plus what I call the power structure at bay, these people travel all over the world. These people go wherever they want to go. These people take pictures of themselves standing on top of icebergs, standing on top of mountaintops in the Himalayas. These people go to the Great Wall of China. They fly over Africa daily. They're in and out of Mogadishu buying and selling cell phones, right? They're all over the Middle East. When I was in Afghanistan, you should have seen the people traveling in and out of Afghanistan. Airplanes were flying in and out of Afghanistan constantly, filled with the most elite people. You wouldn't even believe it. However, the presentation to you, regular man and woman, Joe Smith and Jane Smith, you are presented with this vision. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You need to be afraid all the time and stay as close to your house as you possibly can. Right? But what is that about? Why is it that you feed me fear, but everyone else can go and come as they please? Isn't that interesting? So I caution each and every person out there, think about that. when you're told by people or continuously encouraged by people not to go places and not to do things. And although many of you are mentioning, even in the chat, that there are places that you may or may not go, even in and around your area. Do you know what's funny? I would bet you, even in those cases, and I'm not saying all, and I'm definitely not saying go out and take a tour there, but I'm saying it's possible that even the places that you're thinking about might not be as bad as you think. Maybe. Now, I'm not saying go take a risk and check it out, but I remember that being the story when I lived in Washington, D.C. many years ago. Oh my God, don't go into Southeast D.C. Oh, everybody run. But guess what? Southeast DC had some of the most open parks near the water, beautiful places that were landscaped and lovely. That same Southeast DC, oh my God, had some of the most interesting restaurants and takeout places, right? So what am I getting at? Even in some of these nefarious areas, people don't act like bandits. Now they might, but in some places they don't. I'm saying there is caution to be taken. You might not want to go alone. Like you said, you might not want to go at night because at nighttime, 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., things kind of shift. But the areas sometimes in the day are just quite normal, quite fine, especially if you're just moving along doing what is normal, right? And that you're not out there like, as my brother would say, I'm not out on the street corner trying to sell myself, nor am I out on the street corner trying to purchase illegal material, right? So I'm not going into those areas to do that, right? So I'm not going to interact probably with some of those type of things. Okay, guys, you get it. I'm preaching. You know what I'm saying. But basically, folks, like I said here in the last line, you know what? I believe the world is about to get sick of the UK media, especially after their embarrassing moments with their own riots. Instead of minding their own business, and they all in Harry and Meghan's business. The question comes, why don't you mind your streets in the UK? Correct? At least that's how I think. All right, guys, I'm not going to be long now. I'm about to wrap it up. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to mention the last batches is that here are some of the things that they were talking about while they went to stay. And I just wanted to point out this place called San Basilio. I think I'm going to botch up the Spanish, but I'm going to try to say it. San Basilio de Palenque, Palenque. Okay, something like that. And evidently, this was a recognized area in South America, and it was a town that was settled by Africans as they were trying to build free areas for themselves. So this area was recognized by UNESCO, the town, and it's like a cultural space. Excuse me, people. Excuse me again. It's a cultural area, small group of people, and it's recognized as a cultural heritage site. So I encourage each of us to read more about that. And it is a Spanish speaking area, but they also have a Creole language, which is spoken there. And I think it would be really entertaining to learn more about it. And this is an area where Harry and Meghan may also visit. But I thought it was interesting to talk about because it is sort of a free town which was settled by the Africans that I guess got out of slavery at that time. And it is one of the few that is still survived because, of course, the Spanish, yeah, the Spanish Europeans did try to destroy every area where Africans and African descent persons were trying to survive. They basically tried to wipe them out. So this is one of those few areas that actually survived. So we don't want to forget that part of the history. You know, I know people don't want to talk about it, but that is there, and it is an interesting thing to read about. And we're going to do that. And here again, I have another photo. This is of of Vice President Francia. So again, She seems to be someone who is very solidly placed in who she is and very, what do you call it? Adept at being defiant if required to show that she will do just as she wishes to do. Okay. All right. So I'm going to about to wrap it up. I want to tell you guys, look, thank you guys for hanging out. I hope I had a fun time going over a couple of things and that you guys will hang in here with me. And let's see, let me see if I have a couple of comments here I want to highlight before I get out of here. Let's see who would. Lorna Williams, you need to stop saying places in Canada that you won't go at night. What are you, you need to quit. Okay, cut that out. I need you to hang out down at Niagara Falls, okay? Joyce Anderson says that these are tours of segments um, of scarred areas in the city that are encouraged. Let me see. Wait a minute. Wait. What did I say? Encourage people come from around the world to see these areas. Yeah, the point is to give negative impressions of Black people. Well, of course. I mean, the negative viewpoint of all Black people is a requirement. It is a worldwide institution, right? There is a worldwide institution to be negative about Black people, right? People write books, they deliver newspapers, they push out images from Hollywood, and now even we have musicians that incorporate as much negativity in the music coming from Black people as possible, because we don't want the world to get this view that Black people are not the scourge of the planet, right? Because that is now the institution. And it is going to take a millennia to try to undo, unplug, and turn that around, right? You can do it on a small scale, right? People like basketball players, football players, they love the athletes, they love the musicians, okay? But when as long as you have a musician on the left side, then you have a musician on the right side. You have ones that are great and they're wonderful and people love them. But then you have this torrent and flood of negative musicians that their music, everything they say in their music is the most horrible stuff you've ever heard. And then we want everyone to think constantly, right? If you see Black people, what are they doing? They're always fighting, they're always arguing, they're always scrapping, tearing each other down, and they're violent, right? Not to mention that we put a certain group of people. Now, remember, every ghetto has had practice, right? Everything that is happening in any type of horrible situation where you maybe pack people in, where they're living in unsafe conditions, where there is no upkeep of where they're living, it creates an environment where the people who live like that will do very little to improve that, because they don't even have a view that they can, right? So when you take it's easy to take young people who may not know any better, putting them in an environment where they feed and fight with each other. You're going to get more of that. Remember, that is an institution. Yes. Okay, so it's made to operate like that. And so the with the quickness, as we begin to try to turn this ship around worldwide, just to make better people everywhere to think better about their lives and the lives of others, it is going to be an uphill battle all around. And yes, Colombia is definitely a vibrant country. And I think if we get a chance to get there, maybe we should check it out. I think I have put this up there. Lorna Williams. Ah, yeah, you're familiar with Anacostia, D.C. Yes, it used to have a reputation. Used to go to a club. You should be ashamed of yourself. But anyway, I know where you probably were. But yeah, I lived there for about 10 years. And, D.C. has its ups and downs. But now, of course, I tell you what, it looks very different. It's getting a different look. So the UK media will continue their attempt to make every thought about the royals in the UK positive, while making everything about Harry and Meghan negative. And it's because they are a strange animal, and that is how they operate. But I tell you, they're going to continue to chase Harry and Meghan, and they're going to constantly be behind them and chasing them basically for the rest of their lives, because it's going to be very hard to get ahead of what Harry and Meghan are doing. The people who are paying attention can see that even if it was all a front, even if it's all phony, even if they're not real, whatever, they're still trying to do good work. Okay, and we're going to stay that. Now, of course, I get to this portion where I usually pull out a scripture or something that kind of uplifts me, makes me think, or something I want to share with all of you. And again, I am not recruiting people to join any type of a cult. You don't have to be at my church or anything like that. But every now and then, because it is something that is a part of what my upbringing, I like to share with you all. And maybe if you're interested, then you can go to your own Bible. I prefer the King James Version. That's just because I'm old fashioned and that's what we read in Old English. Okay. But I like to sometimes put these things out here and let you know that they are pretty entertaining thoughts to have. So it came to me, and I only pulled a portion of Psalms 109. I forgot the S, but that's okay. You know what I mean. And 109, I want you all to know, for those of you who are interested, now I'm not going to put this out for folks who aren't, is to read the entire psalm. And the reason I say that is this psalm, as it is presented, had a relationship to what occurred with the character Judas. Many of you are aware of the character Judas, biblically, Iscariot, who is the main character seen as a traitor. Okay? He is the one that is labeled a traitor and caused a lot of havoc in the life and end of life of Jesus Christ. So, this psalm, I want you all to be aware the entirety, it can be very dark, right? Because as is the nature of psalm, it's as if it's a prayer or an incantation, and I'm trying to use the right words. It is an internalizing thought. It's what when a person is supposed to be like writing in thought and having a very spiritual um, connection to how they feel. Okay, and the reason that this one is so intense in a way is it is about enemies. It's about dealing with enemies. It's what the interaction that you might have with enemies, how to spot enemies, things like that. And so there is an element of darkness that goes along with this. Okay, but let me read just this portion because when you think of Harry and Meghan and the fact that they have to deal with their enemies, it states, "For wicked and deceitful mouths, they are open against me, speaking against me with lying tongues. They encircle me with words of hate, and they attack me without cause. In return for my love, they accuse me, but I give myself to prayer. So they reward me evil for good and hatred for my love." So when you think about that in terms of what Harry and Meghan are dealing with, you are looking at, in my view, the type of prayer and the contemplation that he may also feel. Bonnie Mighty noticed that she read Psalms 109 for enemies and 140. Yeah, exactly. Um, That is absolutely so. So I encourage you all to also take a look at 109. But when you think about the perspective that they may have, now I don't know, I don't know all the details and intricacies of their lives. But when you think about people who they feel like they're just living their lives and they're trying to do good things, they're trying to help people here and there. But then what is happening? Everything that they do, try to do something good, they try to do something positive. The enemies are out there to turn everything inside out and upside down. So 109 is an interesting psalm, But that portion I thought applied very much to perhaps what Harry and Meghan are dealing with. And I want to tell you guys, I want to tell you how much I thank you all for being here. I appreciate your being here and enjoying participating. I'm going to thank you all for being here. I do appreciate it. And let's see if we can get to the wrapping it up. And I want to show you that they are going to continue to move around. And I am hoping to see more movement from Harry and Meghan as they continue traveling all around the world and doing good wherever they can, because they bring light and attention to all causes that they are involved in. So once again, folks, thank you all for being here. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. And thank you for joining me here at All for Success. Now get out there and get fit, and let's have a good time.